You've been thinking about launching a podcast, and it's a great way to promote your business. But where do you start? You have so many questions. What equipment do you need? How long should an episode be? How do you get listed on Spotify? About Basingstoke is the answer. We're professional audio producers with decades of experience. We can advise you on your podcasting strategy, record your episodes, or show you how to do it yourself, get you listed on all the major platforms, and help you understand audience building and ways to turn listeners into leads. Find out more at aboutbasingstoke.com/podcasts. Oh, and if you think you have to do video because who listens to audio these days? Well, you're listening to this, aren't you? Get professional podcast advice and production. Visit aboutbasingstoke.com/podcasts.
We wouldn't be here without the amazing support from IncuHive, who have a superb new location at Helm Mills, Basingstoke, offering everything from a virtual office address to dedicated offices, all with brilliant business support. Find out more at incuhive.co.uk.
Hi there, my name is Kate Llewellyn and I am from the Content Consultancy, offering content support services, helping small businesses to do their own marketing their own way.
Well, Kate, welcome. Really interesting topic this, because it's one that I hear time and time again. Business owners, particularly small businesses that can't afford or don't feel that they need their own marketing department, coaches, consultants, solo entrepreneurs, people struggle with content creation because it can be a full-time thing, can't it? But if you're running your own business and it's not content creation, you haven't got all that time to create things. So it's a struggle.
Yeah, absolutely. You've nailed it. I think people are, well, they're sort of in two camps, really. One is they would absolutely maybe love to outsource, but they're just not sure where to start, or unfortunately don't quite have the income to be able to do that just yet. Or actually, like you said, they didn't mind the marketing and the content at the beginning, but yeah, it's becoming laborious. It's not rewarding. It's not actually, it's not feeling like their best selves when they're doing it. And so they're stuck in that horrible situation where they probably are thinking, well, if I outsourced it, would it make my life easier? But deep down, that's not actually the solution they're looking for. They just want to, make the creation feel easier and more effective again.
Yeah, it's really interesting you mentioned that they love doing it at the beginning, because I think that beginning bit when you're starting a new business, it's not really about content creation as such. It's just about sharing your vision, sharing your passion. But once you get to that point, which hopefully means you've got customers, you're busy, it just feels like an extra thing that you really don't want to do, like filing your tax return or something like that. It's something, I've got to do this. I wish I didn't have to.
Yeah, absolutely. It falls into that category. I mean, I often call it the content treadmill. And the problem is the content treadmill goes from being that really lovely, nice, easy pace, flat gradient. We're just having, just like you've said, we're sharing what we do, we're telling the world, and it's really exciting and new, to unfortunately the content treadmill the gradient gets a little steeper. It feels like it's getting a little bit quicker. And actually what does happen is people, excuse the sort of analogy, but they fall off the back and then they stop. And particularly when they're busy, which is fantastic. But unfortunately, then things maybe sometimes, as in business, we have peaks and troughs and things get a bit quieter. And so then we scramble to get back onto the content treadmill. And that makes it so much harder. And as you've said, it's gone from being that fun kind of promotion and sharing, what you're passionate about and what you want, to that hustle culture, to that, pushing and wanting the next sale because things are a bit quiet. And unfortunately, that's one of the worst sort of headspaces to be in when we're trying to create good content.
Yeah. And of course, the elephant in the room is that things are constantly changing as well. And people will know from their own businesses that very often there is evolution constantly. AI, of course, has affected lots of businesses and will continue to do so. And they're busy looking at their own industry. They're looking at what's happening, how the market is changing. They haven't, again, necessarily got the time or the interest to keep up with what's going on in, for example, social media platforms and the changing algorithms, Google search. All of these things are making such a big difference. And, it's probably, I think it's fair to say, the biggest shift we've seen in how things work in probably 25 years.
Yeah. Absolutely the case. I mean, you've sort of highlighted a multiple number of areas, isn't there? So first of all, there's loads of platforms, to even choose from, let alone to then post on and keep up with all the best practices. And then, you've got these kind of overarching big changes just in the way that our clients or our customers consume content. So trying to keep up with that. And then, yes, the joy of AI, which, I am very much a proponent of in terms of its supporting small business owners and solopreneurs and helping them. But equally, it's come with its whole new raft of things that we need to learn in terms of best practice of how to use it, of not just regurgitating whatever it tells us to put out, and keeping our own authenticity. And I know for a lot of people, keeping our own, what we feel is right, however you want to interpret that term in terms of the content that we use that maybe is produced by AI. Then layered on top of that is obviously, yes, AI has changed the way that people search for information, the way they do their research, and subsequently it has had a massive effect on how businesses are found and how, their content was once consumed is very different now.
And what we don't want to see, and unfortunately we do see, and we have done for a while, and this is probably why AI is doing it even more, is people who just put out fairly generic content. People have been doing it for a long time, where instead of really thinking about their own experience, thinking about a unique way of putting something across, or even challenging the status quo, people have just put out stuff that they've seen other people do. There have been penalties for that in terms of Google search, for example, anyway. So it's always been a bad thing to do, to just copy everybody else. But AI then has copied what the majority are doing. And a lot of that is duplicate content. So now if you ask AI to create something, it's really just distilling a load of duplicate content into something which feels even more generic.
It does. But, I'm going to say, Steve, that I totally get it. Like, I get what, we've already mentioned, people are busy. And if business is going well, even more so. And suddenly you've got this thing where you can just stick in, do me 5 posts or write me a blog post, and it does it in seconds. It's totally understandable. But what's really sad is that what I'm seeing is that what should be a tool that people use very mindfully and do use carefully and critically before then obviously just simply copying and pasting the content. Instead, actually, what it's doing is, I'm noticing, is more and more, it's actually affecting people's confidence. So those people that used to create original content, with a confidence, with a, I've got something to say attitude, all of a sudden, AI more and more, unfortunately, is because you maybe share a content idea, or you write something and you ask AI to edit it or to optimize it or what have you. But what's actually happening is AI is just too helpful. And it will give you another suggestion. It'll say, why don't you think about this? Or it will automatically change whatever you've written. It's very, very rare that AI goes, do you know what? That's perfect. Great. Put it out. And so it's actually knocking people's confidence. And just as you've highlighted, people do end up just putting out what it's already said because they've almost lost the confidence in that their original content was good enough. Does that sort of make sense?
It does, yeah. I think there's 2 sort of elements to that. Yeah, there's that time when AI will sort of say, oh, have you thought about doing this or maybe do that? And you can test this yourself, by the way. If you get AI to write something for you, maybe some copy for your website, and then leave it a couple of days or even go, and use a different AI. So maybe you've created it in ChatGPT and then you go to Gemini or Claude and you put it in there. It'll start to pick apart stuff that either itself or some other AI platform has created. And you can get into this rabbit hole of thinking, oh no, I need to tweak it. I need to change that. I need to do that. Oh no, now I've got that wrong. And as you say, it's confidence that really is the problem then. And that's huge, because once you've lost your confidence, it's really difficult to get it back.
Yes, exactly. Exactly that. Unfortunately, in its sort of willingness to be helpful and to always offer another option or another solution, it actually does itself its own disservice. And in return, the user, the person who's creating the content in themselves, they do. The confidence is knocked. And they start to lose faith in themselves that actually, what they created originally really was good enough. ironically, actually, I would say in most cases, it was probably better. It was better because it did have that authenticity and that passion. And I suppose I would say to anybody that feels like they maybe have got sort of sucked into an AI habit of having to have AI, correct it in for want of a better term, is to step back and to sometimes look at what maybe, especially what you used to do in the past pre-AI, and remind yourself how good it was, maybe the interaction or the engagement, the effect it had. Chat to clients and say, what attracted you to my business? And I bet you they'll talk about a piece of content that really came from the heart, that was, was passionate, was authentic, and was original.
Yeah, what I find really amusing in a way, but also frustrating, is how platforms are using AI to catch AI. So, for example, LinkedIn, they announced fairly recently that they were changing their algorithm, and these platforms do change algorithms from time to time and decide on what certain situations will mean your content gets shown or doesn't get shown to people. And one of the things that it's looking for, and I know Google are doing this as well, with their own search as they make the changes, with YouTube as well in the way that it serves things up there. They're using AI technology to spot things that are created by AI and penalizing the use of AI. So this is kind of a full circle use of AI. People creating stuff with AI, but then platforms using AI to stop that AI content being seen. So it becomes a very damaging thing if you are creating most of your content with AI, because you're probably just going to be wasting your time at the end of the day.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think it's that thing, isn't it? Like you described it, it's circular. So if all we ever do is put out AI content to which is then sucked back into the AI, eventually you're just going to see exactly the same things everywhere. And we do almost strangely a disservice to AI, because one of the best things about AI is that it can continue to learn. And so we want to be feeding it new information, original information, as much as we can in order to help it expand and get better. If, as you say, if it's only just reading itself, then that's not going to work. And, I personally, as someone in the marketing background, I am pleased that although there is a sort of, a contradiction in the use of AI to identify AI content. I hope it's getting the message across to business owners that their original voice, their original content is really worthwhile, and it will, I think for a while it didn't feel like that. It didn't seem to matter whether the content was AI generated or not. Those people were still, getting the likes, getting the views, etc. But I hope it's, showing that, original content will take precedent. And more so, I think as well, it's a good reminder that, our consumers, our clients, our customers, they're smart. And they are starting to recognize what is, AI, poor AI content, let's call it, versus, something that, is original and is just better, that has the feel of a human behind it. Because again, those professions that you described, consultants, coaches, service-based, businesses, people want to buy from people still. A lot of interaction is, whether it's physically in person or certainly, like you and I right now, talking to people, real people, and that connection, is as important as ever.
Well, I found it quite amusing that Google, when they announced their changes to how Google search is going to work, one of the things that they would be looking for is proof of human. I mean, it's quite scary and sinister, that phrase, but it sums it up really nicely, that actually it wants to have evidence of real conversations, evidence that it has come from a human, with all of our mistakes and all of our strange ways sometimes of creating content, of putting ourselves across, but also our brilliance in terms of expertise and experience that only humans can have.
Yeah, absolutely. And I adore it, because actually we've talked about, things changing and, best practice or whatever, different rules, different algorithms, all of that. But what you've just said underpins what actually always underpinned, SEO, search engine optimization from the start, which was good quality, trustworthy content is always what a search engine is looking for. And it's no different, with AI giving those summaries, those answers, following a search string or what have you. that's exactly what it's still looking for. It's looking for good quality, human created content. And I think that's really, really, should be really reassuring for all of us, because as you said, mistakes and all, we still have a lot to give in terms of the content world.
So let's just revisit that confidence thing that you brought up. So if somebody comes to you and they say, Kate, I want to start creating more content for my business, shall I just use AI and create stuff? Or have I got anything, do you think, that I could create of my own, any experience, any stories of my own that I could share? How do you instill that confidence in people that actually, yes, that is the most important bit, that is really valuable, and you should be confident in your own expertise and ability?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. So basically, I get them to take a step back, for want of a better term. And it all starts for me with a new clarity around three things. So first of all is, what do you want to do when it comes to content and marketing? Do you love talking like this? So actually, is something like podcasting or being a podcast guest a really great thing for you to do? Do you actually prefer, writing versus maybe being on video? So actually, what could we do with that writing skill and that passion you have for it? And are you maybe more comfortable on a certain platform versus another? So we really get to talking back again about, I suppose, in many ways, giving you control back over your marketing, because there are loads of platforms to choose from. So let's at least start with one that you personally enjoy using. We then have a think about your business and the services. What platforms really lend themselves to your particular business and services, and therefore the content that you're going to want to create about those, that business and those services. And then finally, we have obviously a chat about your ideal clients. Where are they going to hang out? What type of content do they like consuming? What sort of style, all those kinds of things. So it's really helping the business owner to realize that they've got a lot of control over the marketing that they do, the way they do it, how often they do it, the style they do it. And then with that, we can start to build in more consistency, because people actually get excited about creating their content again. And they can see they've got that clarity. They've got that sort of strategic view of why, not just what they're doing, but why they're doing it. And that consistency often leads to, we start to see results. Even sometimes, if the results aren't what we expect, but it gives us something to reflect and evaluate on. And just before we sort of regain our total content confidence, I think what happens is, with that clarity, with that consistency, we get our conviction back. And that's where the magic happens with content again. The content is passionate, it's authentic, it's excited. You have that conviction in what you're trying to say. And in addition, what the marketing activities are trying to achieve for your business. And that's really, really exciting for me to see. And I think with it all, instead of the sort of shoulders slumping when we talk about, doing something on social media, or, the marketing plan that's in front of you and you just feel overwhelmed, instead, as I say, people once again feel excited. They want to see what's going to happen. They want to even sort of test and measure, experiment again, because that's the wonderful thing about digital marketing. There's so many different things that we can try. And that's where I see confidence being rebuilt. And, the delightful thing is that the marketing itself becomes a lot more effective, because you just attract your clients in a different way. You connect with people again. And it's really powerful.
And I love that you mentioned consistency, because I think consistency is more important, especially these days, than frequency. And there was a time where people felt that they had to be posting all the time, every day. And it becomes like a second job, doesn't it? And for many people, it almost took over their real job. They're trying to run a business, but actually they're creating all this content. They're feeling they've got to post here and post there and do something here. But I see, and I think this is probably a thing about algorithms again, but also our use of social media. I've seen, even this morning, I saw a statistic that people in the UK are posting on social media less. And I know there's a kind of a movement towards people not using screens as much, not spending as much time scrolling through. And so actually putting out, for example, one blog post or one LinkedIn post or one video or one podcast a week might actually be better than those people who have been trying to put out stuff every single day.
Yeah, Definitely. It's quality over quantity, isn't it? Like every time. And I completely agree as well. Like consistency, it's not about regularity. It's not about frequency. It's about consistency of message, of branding, of, approach, of positioning. That's the stuff that actually connects with people and what people remember. That is so important. And I don't know, for want of a better term, putting out content under duress because you feel like you have to because somebody told you to post every day is so much worse than, like you say, that real quality piece of content. The other thing I think as well is with quality content, it's often ripe for being reused or repurposed in a way that, just sticking out any old thing never is. So, we actually eventually, we save time because our content, first of all, it hits home because it's really clear and people know what you're trying to achieve with it. But also I say, it can be recycled, it can be reused, which is always a great feeling and a great time saving thing too.
Yeah. And if you can create a new habit in somebody's life, I mean, podcasting is a key example of that, where people have their favorite podcasts. They know when they're coming out. Hopefully those who are producing the podcasts are putting them out at the same time every week or every 2, whatever the frequency may be. And that forms a new habit. And I see it on LinkedIn as well, where certain people will perhaps post one thing. And it might be a fun thing, or it might be a thought-provoking piece of content, and they'll do it on the same day, and they can just stick with that one piece of content. People get to know them. That becomes a new habit. People look forward to seeing that content in their LinkedIn feed, and that's doing a lot of work for them in terms of marketing.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, it goes back to those basic principles of what, have always underpinned marketing, which is, when you're familiar with something, the know, like, and trust, automatically grows. And, we don't like, we all have fear of the unknown. We don't like to be shocked or scared or, dragged from one direction to another. So just like you say, knowing that podcast is going to come out, possibly the format is probably very similar, the style of guests, the style of questions, the length of the episodes, all those things, that consistency can, people really like that. They like to know where they stand with a business, what to expect. And as I say, you'll grow that know, like, and trust much quicker and much easier.
What it seems here, Kate, is that we have reached almost a peak of just following the trends, following the algorithms, trying to play the algorithms, trying to win. Those sort of basic principles of marketing, which are in many cases decades, if not centuries old, are very much in play today and are very much important ways to thrive in a bizarre sort of paradox where AI seems to be everywhere, and yet everybody, including AI itself, is searching for humans.
Yeah, absolutely. Go back to those, key principles of who you are, why you set up your business, what you want to do in terms of helping others or, great products to support other people or whatever it is. Focus back on the human and see very much the platforms as just somewhere to publish, right? Somewhere to get your message out. Yes, but make sure that, that message is totally 100% human and 100% authentic and aligned with you. Definitely.
So, Kate, how can people work with you? In what way do they work with you? What sort of people tend to be your clients that are looking for what you're doing?
Yeah, sure. So the best way to work with me is to come and try out my membership. It's called the Confident Content Creators Club, and I am your main cheerleader whilst you keep going on that content treadmill. It's all about supporting small business owners to do their own marketing in their own way, based around having a plan, being really clear about what you want to do and what works for your clients, and then actually implementing it, because I know that's the tough bit. It's an online membership. There's lots of clinics and planning sessions and co-working sessions to basically just help you to stay focused. I do work with my clients one-to-one as well on a more, strategy focus. If people feel like they really do want to do that work of stepping back, I have a program called Content Clarity. But I'd love for people to connect with me. Just like you, Steve, I often hang out on LinkedIn. So do find me over there. And obviously I do have my website, thecontentconsultancy.com.
Looking to make better people decisions in your business or invest in your own development? Globus HR Consulting offers a psychometric bureau service to support recruitment, leadership development, team performance, and personal growth. From behavioral profiling and motivational insight to 360 feedback and engagement surveys, we help you choose the right options for you. Contact Aaron at Globus HR Consulting today. globushrconsulting.co.uk